So good day, everyone, and thank you for taking time from busy schedules to join us for AI 501. This is our fifth webinar in a mini series that has been focusing on uh, AI, artificial intelligence. I would say more broadly on smart automation. And I'm joined today by Jared Frederici. Jared, thanks for taking time from a busy schedule to be part of this today and sharing your perspectives. Jared is a frequent participant in our more than 125 webinars we've done over the last 4 years for IISE. He is with the Poirier Group, and you'll get to know Jared more this morning as he shares his thoughts and perspectives on AI. In particular, migration strategies for how smaller and medium-sized enterprises can pursue the application and being able to take advantage of AI. So I'm going to do a real quick tee up, and then Jared's going to do a presentation, and then time permitting, we'll do some Q&A on the back end. Use your chat function, if you will. I see a number of you are chatting. I'll be monitoring that. And so if you have questions or you want to share comments or observations, feel free to use the chat function to do that. We will provide a copy of recording and presentation through the IISE website, and I'll have links to show you how to do that. So the webinars are all posted on the IISE website. I've provided an active link on this page, so when you get a copy of the PDF, you'll be able to get back to the Performance Excellence webinars. This particular webinar will be placed in the Industry and Service Systems 4.0 folder. There are packages of webinars that James Swisher and I have put together, and you can get CEU credits, and you can also get certificates for studying up small clusters of webinars that we've done over the past couple of years. So this is where you're going to find this series, this AI mini series, and again, the link is active. So in the first webinar series, Jared was part of a panel, Ben Amaba, Matea Scuda, and John Carmona. And we really just provided, I would say, definitions and sort of foundational information sharing about this topic, or AI. And we did it in the context of Industry and Service 4.0. In the second AI 201 webinar we did, Ben Amaba was our featured speaker, and he talked about AI risks and ISE perspectives on risk management. So you may want to take advantage of that webinar. In the third webinar, I soloed that one, and I focused on helping people understand how AI is evolving. And I used a couple of very practical examples, real world examples in our lives where AI is playing a role. Sometimes I think AI is so ubiquitous, it's all around us, it's everywhere. You can't not come in contact with AI. It's just sometimes we don't recognize that that's artificial intelligence at work. And then in our fourth webinar, I was joined by Elike, Victoria, Chris, and Eve. So we've got somebody from transportation and distribution, somebody from healthcare, somebody from energy services, and then somebody from retail, food chain. And they talked about, specifically in that webinar, they talked about how AI is playing out in their companies. I thought that was really, really interesting to have. They're all members of the Council on Industrial and Systems Engineers. They're all senior leaders of the industrial engineering function. That was a great webinar that I'd encourage you to take advantage of. And so as I get ready to segue to Jared, I pulled this off the internet this morning. I got an article from McKinsey, and so I just thought I'd throw this slide in as a tee up for you, Jared. This is an example of how generative AI can help governments maximize their economic potential. So I just threw it up because, we talk a lot about industry and the service sector, but, people don't necessarily think about government. But here's an example of the power of AI and the potential for creating economies in that sector. So with that, Jared, what I'm going to do is go to the next slide and pass it off to you and let you talk a little bit about how would a company that's not a big guy, so how would a company that's not a Flex or a Boeing or a GM, how would they go about starting to figure out how to migrate in the direction of taking advantage of something like AI? So Jared, have at it.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks everybody for having me. It's nice to be back and talk a bit about this. The landscape has changed really rapidly, especially in our organization as a small organization. So we're going to speak a little bit to that at the end. I'm Jared Frederici, for those that haven't seen me on a past webinar, and so work with the Poirier Group. It's been about 12 years with the Poirier Group organization, and currently look after delivery and our solution architecture for the firm. Industrial systems engineer, obviously, and studied at Ohio State, actually with Scott Sink. So glad to be back and glad to share a perspective from the mid-market and smaller organizations. Maybe we'll touch a little bit on how large organizations are also using it. But as you can see here, there's lots of applications happening right now, especially within supply chain right now, even in the government sector, business services. So we just put some basic bullets here on where it's already happening by industry, because I know many of you are spread out across a lot of different organizations and industries. So this definitely crosses over every industry. We see pockets, more in the high transaction environments, but we're seeing it within core manufacturing. We're seeing it, especially within supply chain, around gaining visibility into where things are at and doing some predictive visibility and modeling for what we ought to do. Especially in IT and business services, we're starting to see AI connected to process mining and being able to make interventions automatically based on a set of business rules versus the humans still having to make choices in that way. So it's happening all around us, and it's happening for companies in different industries and companies of different sizes. So the point of view we've got is to make it make sense for your organization. Not every deployment is going to be a great deployment, but you're going to have to figure out what kind of data do you have, what kind of journey do you want to have within AI, and I think that's possible even within a small firm. We can go to the next slide.
I think you have control, Jared, if you want to try it.
Yeah, I don't think so, Scott. You may have to drive on this one, but okay. I think we'll start to really talk next about the applications for small, medium, and large organizations. And so I think when you go, and you can keep going, Scott, for smaller organizations, I think one of the pieces is the notion of exploration. So we put the sort of the steps at the bottom here, which is a lot of organizations, start to move into readiness and implementation. So how ready is my data? Where are we from a platform architecture perspective versus really understanding what this AI thing is, what the various periphery solution offerings are, and understanding what's possible. So I think that a lot of organizations are moving into the readiness or the implementation, or wanting to actually do a proof of concept, and they're getting excited by the language, but they may not understand what's possible or what this is all about. So I think that we're seeing organizations sort of take a couple steps backwards and look at the notion of exploring what's even possible in the context of this. And so we'll talk a little bit about what our firm actually does in this space from a consulting perspective, and what we're seeing in other firms, small, medium, and large. But again, that's the bigger piece, is the exploration piece, to even know what's possible. And that's a good segue into this, which is really around looking at the taxonomy of solutions underneath AI, and it's not just generative or cognitive AI or natural language processing, but there's certainly RPA and machine learning we see as branches within. We sort of categorize these within our solution taxonomy as AI and business process automation. And so under that, you've got a lot of different taxonomies of solutions, whether it's around predictive models. We've got a product within our organization called Chat TPG that's been built. And so that's possible. Chatbots. There's certainly great strides that have been made around video and audio processing. Specifically under the RPA side, we put a couple platforms there, but again, that can be a number of different platforms across different providers. But I wanted to just show kind of the higher level. This is the higher level taxonomy of what's possible. So I think starting to think about as a smaller organization, what are we really going to do with this thing? Because you can make lots of investments, but as a small organization, you have to be really careful about where that investment goes. So one of the starting points is you explore the space and look, okay, well, maybe we can automate or take 10,000 hours out of this particular back office or call center or within core manufacturing. You do want to start to discuss, are you a good candidate? And so when you look at the symptoms here, it's kind of going to WebMD in a sense. If you've got a great business problem that's actually applicable, because AI is not a solution for everything. I mean, it's a little more narrow. We're seeing it thrown at a lot of things because people are excited about it. But I think that there's a little more narrow applications when you've really examined it and it being the right solution set. There's a lot of other solutions that might even be faster, easier, better, cheaper, et cetera. But when you look at the good candidates here, if you've got some complexity, if you've got repeatability, if you've got data that you trust, got some people that can be dedicated to it or examine it and do it right, I think that you're potentially a good candidate. Those organizations that are excited by the concept, but don't necessarily have the best data, haven't invested in infrastructure, have significant process gaps, maybe don't have repeatable processes, just note that you can do a lot of harm very quickly. And so you have to be really, really careful, especially with, again, garbage in, garbage out, right? So I think as you look at considerations, I think you can go to the next animation, Scott, but I think you look at your data is really, really important. Again, especially if you're setting up something that's sort of internal, closed loop, where you're losing some natural language processing. Again, whether it's a chatbot for your organization to give call center folks the ability to really rapidly know their entire knowledge library at once. That knowledge library has got to be accurate. So I think that it's really important that you have a look at data structure, data accuracy, data availability in advance of this as you start to explore how you deploy this in your organization.
Jared, I want to jump in and make a comment. There was a question from someone about discussing the cybersecurity data protection. So Kelly and others on the call, we had a webinar in this series that was completely devoted to nothing but the subject of risks and risk mitigation. So I think it was the second webinar in the series, AI 201. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but you can go back and look at that webinar. Ben Amaba was the key speaker. He was a former CTO with IBM. So that'll help you, Kelly, I think. Okay, Jared, sorry.
No, it's great. It's a great question. Certainly top of mind for a lot of organizations. So listen to Ben's webinar on that as he can articulate it way better than I can. You do have to be quite careful, though, especially in building closed loop systems and employees getting excited by ChatGPT and now Gemini, which is Google's platform that's coming out. So you do have to remember, it's anything that you put out there is public domain. And so especially with the NDAs and master services agreements and all of our customer contracts, you've got to be very, very careful and do this right, within your technology team, within an infrastructure that can build a closed loop environment, et cetera. So I think when you look at integrations, and we're going to focus on, the small market here, but, there's definitely the case to be made for outsourcing some of these services. Organizations are starting to get really good at this, especially service organizations. And so one consideration versus, if you've got cybersecurity risks, or maybe you don't have a huge legal team, you want to outsource this as a service that exists now. There's certainly some good services out there versus building your own. There is the case to be made for building your own, even as a small organization. And just the APIs are getting so much off the shelf now and integratable within different platforms, especially OpenAI. I think that it's becoming easier and easier to dive into this and create an internal natural language processor for your organization. I think in the mid-market, it's sort of that plus, and then I think enterprise level, it's that plus, where organizations are starting to knock out significant portions of the value stream with RPA, machine learning, and different types of generative AI. So I think it's important to understand kind of where you fit in there, but note that the barriers to entry are just so much lower these days. And even within 20, 30, 40 person organizations, you can begin to play in this realm and potentially be a differentiator in your marketplace. And we'll talk about how we've used that as a 50 person organization here up in Toronto. One of the things we really like to do is, I think, again, one of the predecessors is to get your processes mapped. And we still see that this doesn't exist, or it exists at the SOP level, but doesn't necessarily connect upwards. So being able to see the organization's processes in an enterprise process map or enterprise value stream map, so that your SOPs and your swim lane, more detailed processes are connected, is important. Because as you explore what's possible, and you explore what sort of the barrier to entry, what's the cost, what's the potential business case on this, you're going to have pockets that light up in the organization that might be great candidates. So it's good to, if you want repeatable processes, you're going to have to, from a BPM perspective, at least be at level 3, maybe level 4 maturity level to get these things documented, repeatable. Because again, you're going to likely be making process changes. So you need to do so in the context of the change control and sustainability measures of your processes. So we see this as a huge, almost a recommended, necessary starting point to begin to find out, especially the relationships between processes as you start to automate pieces of your value stream. And so we'll actually talk a little bit about some real examples here we've done either for clients, for ourselves on the next slide. To talk about, okay, we've got the organization's process mapped, but where do we start to play? And so I think one good example, at least in the quote to release process, is under purchase orders. And so we see lots of organizations struggling still with data entry, still dealing with PDFs, with orders coming in through email, which is a great example. Invoice to payment matching, three-way matching, any sort of discrepancy or invoice disputes, and certainly some compliance issues. So we've seen OCR, so optical character recognition, leveraged to take any PDF or any format that exists and sort of pipe that into native ERP, that's what you're using, or into any other application if you want to automatically have those move into a SharePoint list or what have you. We certainly see that occurring through the lens of broader RPA and machine learning and some AI-based solutions, whether it's three-way, four-way PO matching and looking at discrepancies or even predicting discrepancies. We've seen that as a nice AI deployment under the purchase order part of the value chain. And so I think whether it's smart matching or getting faster on payments, especially when you look economically, cash flow is king. The cost of debt is significantly high. And so as you're able to move cash flow into your organization from an AR perspective faster, you're going to be better off for sure. I think this is one good example. Yeah.
Yeah. Question for you that came in. So I think that you, I'll say this and then you can either validate it or not. So I think that you are saying to people that enterprise process mapping is a necessary initial foundational step to take so that one can rationally think through where are the best places to do smart automation.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So Cami asked this question, and I think that. So I think the answer, Cami, to your question is that's exactly what we're saying. That I would say level 1 and level 2 process mapping, right, Jared?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why in this portrayal you see them sort of lit up, because again, choose your battles, and you want your first AI deployment to be successful. You want it to create a pull within the organization versus some corporate push that sounds great, but at the end of the day is really the wrong solution. We've over-engineered it. I think the other piece is that each one of these lit up process steps, there's a detailed swim lane map below that of the actual steps within the process. And the other thing is, from a change management perspective, there will likely be people implications. And so if you're growing, you might take those 2,000, 3,000 hours that you've saved up and maybe reinvest it into another part of the organization as you're growing, or it may have P&L level impacts. And if it does, how are you going to understand the magnitude of the change if you haven't mapped out the process? And I think it works on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. And Jared, another question it's a little ahead of where we're at in the conversation, but since it came in, people are sort of thinking ahead. So as I surface the opportunities, so I'm looking for bang for buck. I'm looking for how fast I can get benefits realization. I'm looking for where the pain is biggest. So there's a number of different things I'm looking at when I'm deciding, where to smart automate. And so that process is to make sure that my portfolio of smart automation is rational, thought through, and sequenced in terms of payoff to the organization. Sometimes you're going to have sequential interdependence. You can't do this unless you do this first. So you're going to have some of that. And then the other question that came in is that there's a continuum of make, buy, rent, partner. So every time you find a spot to smart automate, then you're faced with, okay, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll address those. So the first question there, I think, is really good around the portfolio and the mix. So, one, I think we like to do benefit to burden matrices here. You can apply a basic quadrant, but there's what's the net benefit versus the net impact. And again, you got to look all the way down the line. There's a lot of solutions that aren't great AI solutions. It could be, you just need a discrete event simulation. It could be that you need a stochastic simulation. You already have platforms that you've built to do that, or it could be that, but there are select, like whether it's especially dealing with large volumes of text, on the natural language processing side, so legal, SLA agreements. So if you're a distribution network and you've got 15 3PLs that all have different SLA agreements, in that case, given its large volumes of text, maybe 100-page agreements, thousands of pages, AI is a great potential solution to look at areas of leverage and areas of weakness in your contracts or inconsistencies. However, if you're looking to automate a back office process where they're in maybe Microsoft Excel and SharePoint, that might be a really great RPA deployment using Microsoft Power Automate. And so again, if you're just sort of looking for AI deployments, sort of the hammer and the nail analogy, look at your portfolio and the mix of what the business need is, and then AI is one of many solutions to use, but you don't want to force it. And I think going back to the make versus buy, there are solution providers in the mid-market who are getting really good at this so that you don't have to be, and you can rent those services. They're typically, the entry point is, 40, 50,000 likely for some type of a small engagement to get going as a proof of concept. So what you have to do is you have to weigh the cost of that versus, paying somebody full time to go explore this, or getting somebody that got a minor in it as an industrial engineering student and letting them play
Yeah.
around for 6 months. And so, but just remember that the SaaS, the service companies that do this still aren't free, and it's going to take their time to do it. So if you've got clean data, maybe you don't have a lot of data, and maybe you're curious and you've got somebody in technology that might be freed up, that's got some Python skills. Remember, OpenAI right now has got a really great API into Python. So people are doing really cool things with that integration. As you know, generative AI can create its own coding for you and recommend coding to build more and more tools. So
Yeah.
I'll kind of pause there. I could keep going on, but I think those are great questions. They're things to think about, because you do have a rent versus buy decision.
And the other question, so I think our experience here in helping companies think through their process map and think through their portfolio would suggest, and I'm going to answer this question this way. So one of the attendees said, so do you go deep in one area or do you go broad across the enterprise? I don't think that there's a consistent pattern. So it's the yellow boxes. So those yellow boxes represent opportunities for smart automation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my point is that this is a picture for one organization. The next organization, the pattern of yellow boxes is going to be completely different. It's a function of a lot of different things. So I don't think that you can say the strategy is to go deep in one area. In fact, I'm pretty sure that probably wouldn't be a strategy for many organizations. It would be more, because it's like value stream analytics. If you, in theory of constraints, as you smart automate, essentially you're relieving a constraint, and then the constraint moves. So you got to be thinking about, where is the constraint going in terms of flow? So think about smart automation as helping flow.
Mm.
And it moves, right? It changes. I think that's what we've seen and experienced as we've helped clients.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the deployment strategy is critical. So if you deploy, if you get the team excited, okay, we're going to go do AI, and the first thing you do is map out the processes for 6 months, you're going to lose everybody, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a small organization. So I think it's an and, it's not an or. I mean,
yeah,
you take the pieces of the processes you already have, and in the back of your mind, you probably have some hypotheses where there's density in transactions, there's density in text. And I think you've got to build some quick wins in parallel with mapping and highlighting those points. I don't think you can get away with a 4 to 6 month exploration these days. We're seeing the ability to, take your team, record a process mapping session. Okay, let's do order to cash. And it's got 13 level 2 processes, and within there's about 40 more tactical processes. And maybe in a 4 to 6 hour session, you can knock those out. People can describe what the processes are. If you add, process characteristics to that, we've got the ability as an organization to import that in through our internal chat TPG generative AI platform, and have it spit out an input file into Microsoft Visio so that the processes current state are mapped automatically. Imagine the lead time that cuts down. I mean, a lot of internal IE departments and CI departments are pretty lean, no pun intended. So imagine being able to do a 6-hour workshop and the next day have 40 processes mapped. I mean, maybe they're not perfect, you got to tweak them, but you've got a head start. I think that's a way to use AI to find further AI opportunities within your organization. And so,
that's a great
sort of kill two birds.
That's a great example. Yeah. So let's move on to AI and inventory management.
Yeah, another point in the value. So we talked sort of about upstream order to cash, but under inventory replenishment and allocation for especially seasonal organizations. One of the challenges, you might have MRP, you might have a great MRP, you might have MRP that can dynamically and predictively potentially come up with dynamic MOQs, dynamic min-max, make to stock differentiators versus make to order based on characteristics, but a lot of, we're seeing predictive AI, generative AI based algorithms being the platform behind a lot of more advanced MRP functions, especially if you're a more complex organization. We're seeing the deployment within inventory management of, especially within retail, of predicting out of stocks, given COVID, post-COVID issues of inventory management and out of stocks in retail. We're seeing the ability to predict that based on historical behavior and broader scale economic patterns. The ability to not just connect your MRP platform internally, closed loop, but to be connected to external market conditions or external benchmarking tools. And so I think we're seeing within inventory management a more broader data set that's being collected, housed, and then generative AI is beginning to come up with solutions and predictions and even mitigating protocols as a result of that, especially within supply chain. And even in some cases, it's not predictive, it's just getting visibility. It's taking 14 disparate systems and data sets and bringing it into one portrayal potentially, even if that's all it's good for, to provide visibility. So we're seeing quite a bit. I can't cover all of it in the time we have, but there's certainly addressing levers such as visibility and then making sure we get the right stuff at the right moments here. I think the third one here is on pricing. So when you look way upstream, I think, and we see this within social media, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly, but dynamic pricing algorithms certainly beginning to run rampant in multiple industries potentially you wouldn't think. And so again, whether it's the connection of loyalty within retail, and we've been seeing this in retail for more than 8 to 10 years at this point. So this is not necessarily new behavior that's happening. But again, we're with customer data, with CRM, we're seeing right now a lot of CRMs, especially in service organizations, using predictive models to tell you why you lost engagements and help you win better the next time. So I think as you get good master data in CRM, it's not just pricing, it's win-loss, predictive funnels, helping you understand and plan out your year a bit better using generative AI. Sure. I think on supply chain, we talked more about this previously, but now we're seeing implications around scenario modeling, discrete event and stochastic simulations. So again, if your nodes are identified, so we've got 15 distribution centers spread across the US, and you've got data characteristics associated with those nodes. You've got some constraint, got your objective function. Again, Python and ChatGPT, OpenAI now have a nice connection. And again, generative AI can write algorithms for you to address and do some discrete event simulation within that platform. And so I think that examining how you're doing simulation, how you're doing financial modeling and forecasting, this will have implications for that, as these tools allow you to do it faster and more repeatable. And again, both of those platforms are open source. So also you have to factor in the cost of some of these platforms, but then it's the cost of your internal team figuring it out. So I think it's just one thing where there are implications. Every situation's a little bit different on the make versus buy, but I think it's important to just know that it's out there, that organizations are starting to simulate their supply chains in open source freeware software. On the larger organizations, the things that are already happening, obviously, every time you log into Netflix, more complex machine learning algorithms are, coming up with your preferences. I get recommended things on Amazon. I'm pretty sure my phone's listening to me. So naturally, I buy more of that stuff. And it just kind of fuels a cycle. Salesforce, we actually talked about CRM a little bit earlier, but again, helping organizations in the service businesses win more, and but helping them also understand why they win and also why they lose. Whirlpool's been doing it for years on its assembly lines using RPA, especially in repetitive tasks. And again, even in Samsung, we're seeing like quality and error detection. So we didn't talk a lot about quality in Six Sigma, but I think error detection, especially in the food industry using vision systems. So imagine you've got now thousands of data points on every item that you sell. Quality is taken to a new level, especially predictive and making automatic interventions downstream and upstream as a result of getting data, great quality data on your products these days. So I think, before I want to do more Q&A. It's a hot topic, but, we're a small organization. We had a really curious individual who's a great full stack developer. He's just a wizard, who was able to build an internal deployment we call Chat CPG, which kind of worked out cool based on the acronym. But when you look from a consulting perspective, again, with the power that native language processing has built in, it's able to take high volumes of recorded audio and video and make a really great text out of it. So and again, if you've used Teams or you've used Zoom or others where you're getting a transcript of that, it's hit or miss. But the default, some of the default and the add-ins for ChatGPT are getting so good these days that you're getting flawless recording. So if you do that, you've got text master data associated with, so say you're an internal CI department and you're going in and you're interviewing your internal stakeholders to find out what's going on in their area. That becomes data for you, in addition to the data they may provide you. And we're seeing now within our platforms the ability to upload data sets, the ability to upload a recording of a workshop and have it architect clusters of solutions and do cluster analysis based on root cause and start to do advanced statistics as a result of this. So again, you can think of the implications for consulting firms. The lead time of getting to the right answer continues to truncate and shorten, which has implications. I think for us, it gives us the ability to spend more time implementing. At the end of the day, that's what we're best at. But I think about the implications for you if you're in an organization where there's a lot of recorded workshops, you've got a lot of great data. Again, root cause analysis and figuring out, how to use your time and how to figure out solution architecture. I think that this is something that's helped us immensely. We talked a little bit earlier, but the ability to automate process mapping, that takes a long time to do that, as many of you know, especially writing them out. You may not have the ability to record a workshop, but if you do, with the right prompts and the right facilitation, you can create a recording that can create a transcript that can be uploaded into Visio. And there's lots of other platforms that do this to have your processes mapped automatically. Imagine the time it would save you to go help implement within your organizations if, finding out the right answer and mapping out the process.
I want to expand on this. So this slide is specifically about what you've been doing in the Poirier Group.
Yeah.
But what I want people to understand is that industrial engineers often work in an industrial engineering department. They work in a BPI group, a business process improvement group. They work in an operational excellence group, which are internal consulting firms by definition. So everything that you've just talked about in terms of what you're doing in an industrial and systems engineering consulting group, everything is applicable to industrial engineering functions in every organization in the world that has an industrial engineering function. So I think I was VP of business process improvement, as you know, for MDS. And as I've been watching you do this in the Poirier Group, I think that the BPI group at MDS would have doubled or tripled its productivity. I think it would have doubled or tripled its ability to realize benefits in a shorter period of time, more benefits in a shorter period of time as a result of this. I think this is huge. It's a huge example of how industrial engineers can tap into the power of AI. So one of the questions is, what kind of prompting do you use to get root cause analysis from your recorded discussions? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's definitely on the prompt side. Giving it context is really, really key. And so it goes even prior to prompts, which is, sometimes you've got um, a recording without context. And so be able to provide some and type in some context for that and is key. Especially in pretty good, just dynamically figuring out who's saying what in the recording automatically. And but I think that, give me the root cause in the context of a management consultant versus give me the root cause in the context of an analyst or
Yeah.
a physician, or you do have to get some of the prompts and put it in the right industry, put it in the right context, let it think through in the right way. We've done some natively without context, and we've done some with, and it's certainly better to provide prompts with context. Think about it as a management consultant in our case, in the context of a supply chain industry.
So,
So
for
I think that
example,
it's key. Yeah.
so for example, defining roles.
Yeah.
So every time you hear Jared is a senior consultant or an analyst or whatever. Every time you hear Scott is a. So that's what you mean by providing context, defining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It often, through most recordings, we're finding that by default, it's able to figure out those roles automatically.
Wow.
But again, providing that is important. The team we've done sort of manual pain point. We've gone through 50 recorded interviews. We've got 600 pain points. We've had our platform do it, and it's about a 98% match. There have been some logic things we've picked up on. Some of the 2% differential is it found something we didn't. And so it's getting very, very good. But again, understanding how to use it and get the correct prompts helps heighten that. And I think 4.0 versus 3.5, there's a broader conversation to be had there, but I hope that helps a bit. So again, I think we're really lucky because we've got somebody that's amazing, curious, that's fueled up and passionate about this, and he's built this platform. And again, closed loop system, and but it's a client CPG or GPT deployment. Imagine if you had your entire knowledge library organized, and think about it from an onboarding perspective for new employees. Think about SOPs. Think about how people learn in your organization. We very often now use our own chatbot on our own data and ask it questions. From a solution architecture perspective, I've asked it, how would you address a client need that has these characteristics? And I get angry because sometimes it gives me stuff that's better than I would think of. But that's just how we have to adapt and think about the world in front of us now. But so when you think about that, how organized is your data? I think you can take some steps. If you think that a chatbot on all of your organization's metadata and knowledge library is key from an onboarding perspective, it starts to give you strategies to organize and get your data organized and get metadata tags organized. And that's one of many different potential deployments. But remember that there are other solutions, discrete event simulation, regression analysis, classic statistics, some just do it. AI is not the best tool for everything. And it is a branch of tools. And so I think making sure you understand what the population looks like on the platforms that exist out there are important. Gemini is now being launched within Google. So OpenAI, Microsoft Copilot, and some of those platforms are going to have competition, and the competition density will continue to increase. So knowing what's going on in the industry is key. Understanding, it's likely you have pockets of your organization that are great candidates and pockets that are poor candidates, both at the same time. And so how do you do some quick wins when you may not have that skill set internally? And is that a time where you need to reach out to a third party and get a quote for doing a couple proof of concepts in your organization? The buy versus build. You don't have to do everything at huge scale. Proof of concepts are great, but doing and picking the right projects is important. Or you could use AI to be the platform that helps you pick your projects. Think about AI in the context of your own portfolio rationalization platform if you've got a CI department that you're running or you're a part of. So I think there's a lot of ways, especially in the mid-market and the small market, to just get after this. Because again, if you get somebody that's curious and passionate, or if you have the investment to make in a third party, you can go after this. And I think that now is a great time, because in 6 months, 8 months, it might just be the norm. This might be a very different webinar at this point. So where do you want to be as an organization? So I think, Scott, I'll pause there. It was a lot, but hope it helps.
Here's a short question for you, Jared. Quick one. Does your platform replace the coding process in text analytics, and what NVivo or WordStat does, I guess?
Sorry, can you?
It's on the chat. It's in the chat.
Oh, NVO and WordStat. Somewhat, yeah, somewhat. I think that's a good question for Amir on our team. But in a sense, yes, yeah. And its ability to codify language and text and get numerical outputs as a result, and then refit those into the model to do scenario cluster analysis. So I guess the short answer is yes on that one.
That's good. That's great, Jared. So here's a couple of questions. We don't have time to do all these, but these are some questions that I thought of. I think some of the AI evolution and innovation, I'd say AI innovation, is undoubtedly going to happen by osmosis with subject matter experts. In other words, you're going to, even a small, medium-sized firm, they're going to be, again, in the make-buy thing, they're going to be buying apps, they're, like you said. And so I think that you are arguing for leaders of small, medium-sized enterprises to be more aggressive in advancing the introduction of AI to ensure competitiveness through smart automation. Is that a safe summary?
100%. I think it's got to be a conversation, because it's going to be really easy to get left behind, especially for service organizations. We're able to take a recording of a sales pitch and come up with a costed proposal in less than 45 minutes or so. As a result, there are organizations that have AI-based tools attached to their entire library, so that imagine new employee onboarding. If you can cut that in half, I mean, what kind of an advantage would that be for you? So I think it's an absolute must. Again, it's not every solution is right for you, but you've got to explore which ones are right for you.
Yeah. And then the second question, which I think you've already answered, is that in the third webinar in this series, I shared some practical personal examples, automated cruise control. So I got a 2000 Jeep that does have automated cruise control. And then I drive a 2024 RDX that I got for my wife, which has automated cruise control on steroids, right? So if you just compare and contrast the difference between the two technologies, so to speak, it's the same feature and functionality, but it's 2024 versus 2020, 2000, sorry. You can see huge difference. I mean, sensors are, if I get too far to the left, it's jerking me back. It's got a big yellow thing flashes and it's jerking me back into the center of the lane. If I've got it on cruise control and I come up on the back end of a car, it stops me. It slows me down and stops me. So I don't put my foot on the brake anymore. So that's an example. And then the Kroger's, I just got coupons from Kroger's this morning, and I opened it up, and every coupon in the package was tailored for Scott and B Sync, and it's exactly what we need. And there wasn't, other than the mailing process on the back end, there was no human being from point of sales to the most labor was on the back end process where they're stuffing those envelopes and shipping them out. Yeah. You think about that. It's amazing. And then the Home Depot photo thing, I just love. You just take a photo of a part. It's the guy that's putting up tiles, and he runs out of those little spacer bars, and he takes a picture of it because he's run out, and it tells him this is the closest Home Depot. Yes, they've got it. It's in stock. And this is exactly where you find it in the store. So those are just 3 examples of AI at work and my point was that it's all around us. You just have to open your eyes. And once you start to understand what AI really means, you start to see it everywhere. I think that you shared some really practical and personal examples with how you're using it at the Poirier Group. So, but is there another personal example that you like or that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, I think John asked a really good question, which is where do you learn about these tools?
Yeah.
Or the population of tools. And so, I think the starting point is to just download, ChatGPT 3.5, OpenAI's platform, create a little login, and start playing around with it immediately. And then ask it the question, what is the landscape? What does the population look like of AI platforms? I go to YouTube a lot, and I said, show me how to integrate Python and ChatGPT. And you realize there's so you can use AI tools, ask it questions. You can ask it to create Python code for you. So if you want to create Python, get a library attached to it as an add-in and connect OpenAI, you can ask AI to do that for you, at least point you in the right direction. So I think for me, YouTube, just Googling it and asking Chat GPT how to do it is a way to do it, actually. So I think that that's one thing to consider, because it's able to write custom algorithms for you based on whatever the context is that you provide it. It's able to write JavaScript code for you. So I think that's the scary part is you've got a little companion there that can help you navigate these, and you're using AI to do it.
Yeah, I think the other thing, the third point I made here, Jared, is that as we continue to apply technology enablement, in particular AI, I think that IT departments and AI groups that will obviously form, or small groups that will form in organizations, it would be easy for them to get enamored with the shiny objects. And I think that it's important for leadership, and it's important for industrial and systems engineers to keep people focused on the end game. The end game isn't install shiny objects. The end game is drive business results, improve customer satisfaction, improve our ability to get the right thing to the right customer in the right place at the right time, at the right level of quality, at the right cost. So I think that we've got to make sure that the business case for smart automation is clear. And I'm sure you agree with that, because we've talked about it so many times.
Yeah, 100%. Not picking the right moments. Starting point would be understanding cybersecurity and creating a closed loop environment that's controllable, that's sustained, that's got some UAT and some dev and some prod environments that you can go play around with, a sandbox, if you will, and start small. Don't create a lot of expectations in the organizations about it. Nail down cybersecurity. Again, go closed loop. Figure out and make sure people understand, how to use it in a very small and microcosm, and let this thing kind of grow organically. Versus, I think the tendency is to start top down, and an organization gets really, goes into the board level strategy and they want to use these tools, and all of a sudden you're using them for the wrong use cases. Because remember, not everything is a great AI application. In many cases, basic tools can solve those things for you, and AI is both over-engineered and overcomplicated and a little bit costly versus some simple fix. So I think that choosing the right projects is key for sure. It's easy to overdo it. We're seeing a lot of organizations get enamored with it. So it's top of mind for sure.
And then sort of is just to sort of wrap this thing up, Jared, as we approach the top of the hour. So IISE is hosting an AI and Industry/Service 4.0 symposium on Saturday, May 18th in Montreal. So there'll be some outstanding subject matter experts from Montreal, from Canada, and other parts of the North America to share their insights and perspectives and points of view. So another good reason to join us in Montreal in May. The conference is the 18th through the 21st. It'll be at the Montreal Convention Center right downtown. Beautiful city, wonderful city. I was there this summer for a wedding, and it was a lot of fun. This Council on Industrial and Systems Engineers will have their performance excellence track. There'll be three sessions on Sunday. CISE are the senior leaders of the ISE function in organizations like Boeing and GM and UPS and Disney and Emory Healthcare, Duke Healthcare, Sobeys, and then we'll have an ISE capstone showcase. We'll have probably something in the neighborhood of 20 capstone senior design posters. You'll get a chance to be a judge and help us determine of the Sweet 16, so to speak, which are the final four. And then the final four presentation will be on Monday morning. So a great conference planned for you, and I would encourage you to consider coming. And if you do, you'll see me and probably Jared. And so what's just ahead? We got 2 more webinars to close out this year. I'm really excited about our webinar Thursday. We have a speaker from the World Economic Forum who's going to give us an overview of the Global Lighthouse Initiative, which is a very, very neat and interesting, I would call it a global benchmarking, sort of some people in the US remember the Malcolm Baldrige Award. It's sort of a world Malcolm Baldrige Award in a sense. And so that's going to be on Thursday, the 14th. Eduardo Toledo, who is the VP of Operational Excellence from Flex, will be also a part of the panel. And so I think this is a great opportunity for you to see what's happening globally in literally best in class. And then on the 19th of December, I'll be launching another mini series in change leadership and change management. So I'll be doing 101, and that'll sort of be the springboard into January, February, and March. So feel free to click on that link and register if you want. You'll be getting an email from Zoom tomorrow around 11. And the links to register for these upcoming webinars will be right in that email that you get, as well as the link to how to get to the recording and presentation from today. Jared, any closing thoughts?
No, I think I talked enough today. Certainly reach out if you have any questions to Scott and I on this. I think finding a way, small, medium, large, to just ease your way into this is critical. And it doesn't take a ton of investment, I think. So have fun with it and reach out as needed. And just thanks for hearing me out and giving me the time.
Well, Jared, it's every time I listen to you share your thoughts on business process reengineering, business process transformation, you've done so much. You've grown so much from when you were at Ohio State as an undergrad, and you were doing your black belt project at Kroger, and then I think your second project was at Kahiki, a frozen food manufacturer. Jared is an emerging thought leader in our field, and that's why I've invited him back for so many times to these sessions. And he's got your experience base, Jared, over the last 10 years it's been exponential in its growth. It's incredible.
I appreciate that, Scott. Thank you.
So, Jared, once again, thanks for joining today. Appreciate you being willing to let me jump in and add to your great comments. And we'll see you next time. Everybody, stay safe and healthy, and see you on the 14th if you have the time.
Thanks, everybody.